Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, Movie Reviews and Connections in Mind, and welcome back to my reaction series to each and every episode of Season 2 of The Orville. Now, if you've just joined this series midstream, this is just my short-form reaction series where I give my thoughts on each and every episode of Season 2 as they come out. This episode is a day late because I went to see a movie on Thursday night, and in addition to my thoughts on the episode, I also give some analysis on plot developments and character arcs that seem familiar and where you may have seen them before. Now, with all that being said, and without further ado, let's get into Season 2 of The Orville, Season 2, Episode 10, entitled Blood and Patriots. Now, this episode focuses on the aftermath of the two-parter identity, namely the fact that peaceful coexistence between the Union and the Krill may seem possible, and the Krill are open to negotiations with the Union, a peaceful settlement, the first step of which involves the Orville going to a Krill planet and having to sign a preliminary agreement with their permission and escort the ambassadorial staff aboard the ship in order to conduct these negotiations. However, a human captive of the Krill is being fired upon by them, and the Orville takes them into this shuttle into custody, and it turns out the human pilot involved is an old friend of Lieutenant Gordon Malloy, who he believed was killed 20 years ago, and it turns out that this person is alive and well, but the Krill considered him a terrorist who has destroyed Krill ships after the initial ceasefire between the Union has occurred. And it's up to Ed Mercer trying to keep the peace between the Krill and the Union while also getting to the bottom of these allegations, and in order to see how these events may in fact be true, and Gordon may not know his friend anymore after 20 years in a Krill prison cell. Now, I appreciated this episode because I thought this delved deep into Gordon's character. Up until this point, I don't recall there being any really deep character development with him, or an episode really focusing on him. I believe there was one where he got half an episode with him trying to explore the command qualifying test or whatever, but this episode really delves into him as his backstory, his character motivations, his relationship between an old friend and his loyalty to the captain and the crew, and how to balance his emotions towards the Krill with the greater good of a lasting peace with that. I thought that this was pretty much uncharted territory for Gordon in the Orville series up to this point, and I thought that they actually did a pretty good job giving him a serious tone, whereas up till this point he was pretty much the main comedic relief for the series, more so in season 2 than in season 1. He's become pretty much the only purely comedic character of the series, and this time we get to see a serious episode with him, and I thought they actually did a well done job on that front, and I felt that you could really feel his connection with his friend who was in the prison cell for all those years, and he thought he was dead, and so he came back to life, and there was a lot of conflicting emotions there, and I thought they did a really good job of that. And even the overarching theme of Ed trying to keep peace with the Krill and continue this dialogue with them while balancing Gordon's interpersonal relations, while being sensitive to him, while also balancing the thought that he may have to turn this guy over to the Krill without proof per se. And I thought that was a good story arc for this character, and probably it was, in the grand scheme of things, probably not the best episode of this series, but it is definitely one that I appreciated simply for the fact that Gordon got a serious episode on more or less on his own, focusing solely on his dilemmas as a character, and I felt that he was sorely missing that up to this point, so I was really glad for that. Some analysis of this episode, some things that you may, so it's really only one thing, the fact that This episode features a long brewing conflict between these two warring peoples. The Union and the Krill has been going on for who knows how long, longer than any of the crew's been alive, and obviously there have been casualties on both sides and breeding contention among these people. And now that the peace process has started, there's going to be some resentment for that on either side. And this one's exploring the human element of that, and the fact that there are people, specifically this one person in particular, who wants to stop this peace because he thinks that it is wrong on multiple levels, and the Krill can't be trusted for any reason. And that's been done in several different Star Trek series and movies as well, for that matter, because, as I've said in the past, that the Orville is pretty much an homage to traditional Star Trek, as since Seth MacFarlane is a big Star Trek fan, and he's essentially modeled the Orville on Star Trek, it makes sense that they would follow the same trope. However, I find it interesting that Star Trek as a franchise has delved into this trope multiple times, specifically with the episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, The Wounded, in which a captain of a Federation ship is angry with the Cardassian peace because and his actions, unilateral actions against the Cardassian Union, who the Federation is currently at peace with, is leading to tension on the border, and it's up to the Enterprise to stop him because his actions are threatening the peace. Also in an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, past Prologue, in which a former Bajoran terrorist, freedom fighter, is escaped from a Cardassian prison, but he still wants to engage in radical actions against them, even though that the Bajor and Cardassia are at peace at the time. And he even uses a similar device aboard a shuttle to try to destroy something, either the Bajoran wormhole in this case, or in Star Trek's case, or a Krill ship in the Orville's case with a small canister aboard a shuttle. There's an interesting similarity there. And also, lest I forget, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, also deals with the fact that the Federation and the Klingons have been at war for so long, and now that the peace process has started, there are people on both sides who don't want the peace, and they're actively working to try and stop it. So, like I said, it's really only the one thing about this episode that seemed familiar to me, but it's a trope that has been done throughout Star Trek history, and those are just 3 examples that I came up with. So that's my analysis on this episode of The Orville. What did you think of the episode overall? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you disagree with something? Do you agree with it? Did I miss something? I probably missed something. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. If you like what you saw, just like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And also be sure to look for my reaction to next week's episode of of The Orville, as well as my thoughts on the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery on my channel, as well as the reason why this reaction is a day late is because I went to see Captain Marvel last night, and my review and analysis of that is on my channel as well. If you were interested, go check it out. Thank you so much for watching. As I said, just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.